Hello and welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast brought to you by loserpool.com. As ever, I'm your host Harry Symeou and this is episode 47. Now last Friday, the Friday just gone, we reached an incredible milestone. The Chronicles of a Gooner reached its very first birthday. So I want to say a huge thank you to every single one of you who's listened, contributed, sent in a question, appeared as a guest, even subscribed, even retweeted one of our tweets. A big thanks to all of you, because without you guys, this show wouldn't be what it is. And I'm so grateful, for the audience that we've built up so far and some of the fantastic guests I've had the pleasure of interviewing. The result at the weekend wasn't great, and that's a bit of a shame. I'd have liked to have talked about a victory on our milestone show, but instead I've got two fantastic guests with me, and you will not be disappointed, I promise you. Let's find out who they are. Joining me on this week's show are two brilliant guests. They've been on before, and as far as Arsenal fans go, they're classed as royalty. Memz, welcome back to the show, or Mystic Memz, as I should call you.
Nice one, Harry. Grateful for the intro, mate. And congratulations on your first interview yesterday at Arsenal Fan TV. It's a very impressive debut. The last time I saw a debut was that was Patrick Vieira against Sheffield Wednesday, mate. So nice one. Really impressed, mate, and well said.
Cheers, mate. And Graham, welcome back, mate. How are you? It's been a while since we've spoken.
Yeah, it's been about 5 weeks actually. First thing to ask you is how's the family situation at the moment? I know your wife's expecting. Has she had the baby yet?
No, not yet. She's due next week, so she's actually due on the day we play Chelsea at the Emirates. But I'm still going. I'm just going to leave someone
get your priorities right, Harry. Yeah.
and just two final things to say before we move forward tonight. First of all, the last show I did, my Chronicle of Gooner debut was with Memz as a guest, so it's nice to be reunited with him again. And
nice one, mate. Nice one.
And congratulations to you, mate. That's Harry, on being chosen to present that Simply Serie A podcast, which is coming up. I know. Well deserved, mate. Well deserved.
Thank you very much.
Well said, Graham. Yeah, congratulations, Harry.
Cheers, guys. And I hope you'll be listening. Trying to get everyone back in love with Serie A after it's gone off the rails a little bit.
We got a reason now, because Aaron Ramsey's going there, so next season.
Exactly. Right. Let's kick off. Plenty to talk about. Let's start in chronological order. Let's do it the right way around. And of course, on Thursday, spoke a little bit about this in the preview show for the West Ham game, but we were kind of rocked by the news, weren't we, as Arsenal fans, that we would not be able to sign anybody in this transfer window on a permanent deal. Memz, what was your initial reaction to that? I know we've had a few days to look over the facts and figures and get a better understanding of it. My opinion has slightly changed since I first heard the news, I'll be honest. What's your take on it?
Well, I do feel we need two players. I think we desperately need a natural winger. And I believe with the injuries and the performances of some players, I believe we need a centre-back. So I'm quite surprised that there's no funds available, and what Unai Emery said, that we can only sign loan players. I don't know what's going on at the club, and I think any fan truly knows what's going on in the club and the reasons behind it. We can only speculate to what's actually happening behind closed doors, and it was very refreshing that Unai Emery actually came out and spoke quite openly, I felt, but I don't know why, the reasons for this decision. It surprised me. I don't know what's going on there, to be honest with you, Harry. I don't know if we need to clear the wage bill, whether the wage bill is too high at the moment. And I think in the summer we're going to see a number of players leaving and not having their contracts renewed. There's a number of players at Arsenal who are on very high wages. The fact that we're not playing in the Champions League as well, at the moment as well, is probably hindering us. I don't know what's going on. I was surprised at the fact that the board has not backed the new manager and backed their man, so to speak. I was quite disappointed, I have to be honest. And let's see. Hopefully this means that if there's no money available now, there'll be more cash available in January when all of those players leave in the summer as well. So let's see, Harry. I mean, I'm quite disappointed, but I think this year it's going to be one of those years where we almost have to almost write it off. I know it's horrible to say, but just give him time and see what he can do. He's probably got that season now where he's going to evaluate what the players that he has and then see what he can do in the summer. So disappointed, but at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I guess we're just going to have to swallow it at the moment, aren't we? Graham, what's your take on the transfer situation? Memz has expressed his frustration. I feel pretty much the same, to be honest. How are you reading the situation? What do you think is going on behind the scenes, and why are we in this mess?
Well, it's something that didn't come as a surprise to me, and but when you actually see it, it shocks you, doesn't it? At the same time, how have we got into this situation with allegedly the sixth richest club, and we're in a position now where we've got no money to spend? And the answer there is pretty much obvious. You only have to look back to two things, and that is the Gazidis, Wenger, the way they managed the contracts over the last few years, with players being allowed to run down their contracts. Ramsey, obviously being the latest one this year, be going. Think of the money that we've actually lost in these players going for free. The likes of Wiltshire, Ramsey and Sanchez are three that come to mind straight away. And possibly Danny Welbeck as well. So that sort of situation. Then at the same time, we've got an owner who invests absolutely zero in the club, don't we? If you look at the figures that were banded around this week about what owners have put into clubs, the Arsenal owner has put nothing into the club in the last 8 years. At the same time, where the Arabs have gone in at Manchester City and put in over 1 billion. So, and I'm not expecting us to sort of reach those sort of levels, but when you've got an owner who clearly doesn't want to put money into the club, it's a problem. We become a self-sustainable model. Now, you could argue that he pays people to do that role, in which case then the finger has to be pointed at our CEO, our outgoing CEO, Ivan Gazidis, who basically managed to negotiate a very good deal for himself in Italy, but couldn't negotiate very good deals around players' contracts. And also the sort of money being given to some of our very average players, which means that our wage bill is not much less than Manchester City's. So I think the way the club's being run, and the fact that we've got an owner who's got no real interest in the club, who sees it as a cash cow, that's the reason why we're in this mess. And I think you tend to wonder whether Emery knew that when he took the reins of the club, because clearly this might have been discussed, and maybe he was willing to work with what he had, was one of the reasons he got the job.
Yeah, I share that thought as well. I've said it from quite early on in Unai Emery's regime. Not that I don't rate him as a manager or anything like that, but just it felt to me as though he was a candidate that was never really on the cards until the last minute. It felt as though maybe we'd interviewed other managers and they decided that they weren't going to work under the terms and conditions that this board and this club wanted to set. We've got Unai Emery now. Let's get behind him and support him. But moving on to the defeat at West Ham, I felt Unai Emery got some things wrong. And Graham, you'll know from when we talk on the Same Old Arsenal podcast that I've questioned him quite a few times this season. I've taken a hell of a lot of abuse, as a result of that. Because, people are always going to say, get behind him, support him, it's early days. And I get that, but that doesn't mean that I have to agree with every single decision he makes. And there are lots throughout this season that have kind of made me raise my eyebrows. And, I think Saturday's defeat showed that again. Memz, what did you make of the performance down at the London Stadium?
I think you're right, Harry. Is that when Unai Emery's got things right, he's rightly so got pats on the back, and people have spoken very highly of him. The fact that he's made substitutions which have won us games, the fact that he's changing tactics and experimenting. I think with Unai Emery, I think at the moment he's not quite sure what is our best starting 11, and he's not quite sure how to accommodate the likes of Lacazette and Aubameyang in the same team. He doesn't know his his best players, and I think it's going to take time for him to get the mixture right, get the formula right. At the end of the day, he's inherited a number of players which are not his players, and I think you'll probably get to see the best of Unai Emery when he is able to bring in his own type of players that he wants. We all know that he wants to play a high tempo press game. With the current players that he's got at the moment, I don't know if he's able to do that. And going back to your interview on Arsenal Fan TV, Harry, I think you was 100% right with some of your analysis of the game. I get very frustrated when I see the goalkeeper bowl out the ball to our fullbacks, and then our fullbacks give the ball away immediately back to the opposition team. And we did that a number of times against West Ham. We wasn't able to control the tempo of the game. We wasn't able to string passes together. We wasn't able to get any shots on target. We didn't test Fabianski that much, even though we did create a few half chances. I don't recall Fabianski making that many saves. And ultimately, you've got to question the manager because he got things horribly wrong. The decision to leave Mesut Ozil out, we don't know what's going on with Mesut Ozil. 1 week he's captain of the team. 1 week he's playing absolutely brilliantly against Leicester. And then he's substituted at half-time when we haven't seen him for a month. So I don't know what's going on. The fact that the whole way that the whole Mesut Ozil thing for me has been handled has been poor management. The fact that after 6 months we still don't know what is our best formation, we don't know our best starting 11. I think there is some, rightly so, criticism that Unai Emery has to undertake. But at the end of the day, in the same contents, you've got to realise that these are not his players. He's inherited a number of players who are probably not good enough, and it's going to take him time to get the fixture, get the formula right. So I'm prepared to give him that time. If we're still having these concerns in 2 years' time, then that's a different story. But he's still trying to find his feet, Harry. With the West Ham game, it was frustrating. I do think that the manager does need to take some responsibility for that. But in the same time, some of the players' performances was absolutely appalling. For me, the only two players that looked up for it was Guendouzi and Alex Iwobi. I thought they were the only two players that played well. Koscielny has struggled since he's come back into the team. I thought Mustafi struggled yesterday. I don't know what's going on with the wing backs, Maitland-Niles and Kolasinac. I don't think we're creating enough there. I was quite surprised that Lucas Torreira was left out the side, considering he's been one of our best players in the last couple of weeks. Like I said, Iwobi and Guendouzi played well. Aubameyang yesterday, for me, was not in the game at all. And considering he's scored quite a number of goals, the contribution that he put into the game yesterday, the work ethic, and it wasn't there. So I think Unai's struggling to get the chemistry right and the formation right, and I do understand that it's going to take time, and during this process we're going to have highs and lows, and I'm going to be patient. I'm going to give him time, but I think during this process we're going to experience a few more games like what we saw against West Ham, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Graham, do you not think it would make more sense from Unai Emery's point of view to stick with a particular system, a particular starting 11, obviously given that they're all fit, and try and build on that as opposed to tinkering so much? For me, Memz has touched on it. Torreira not starting was really confusing for me. He's probably been our best player this season, and probably been, the signing of the season in terms of the entire Premier League. A lot of people would argue that, but for some reason, Matteo Guendouzi is getting selected ahead of him. And for me, Guendouzi is a player with bags and bags and bags of potential. But at this moment in time, I don't think he's ready to play week in, week out for Arsenal. I don't know whether you agree or disagree with that.
I think he has overcomplicated it quite a lot recently with the systems he's been playing, Harry, to be honest. I think the one thing I've been a big fan of Emery since he's come in at the club. Some of the early things he did, I think, tactically were really good during games. But what's been worrying over the last few weeks, and it's not just because we've started to lose games now after that unbeaten run, I just think the team at the moment lacks an identity. He still, as you said, quite rightly said, he doesn't know his best 11 yet. I think there is clearly this war going on, whatever you want to call it, between him and Mesut Ozil. And I think I'm just wondering what impact that's having on the dressing room. Obviously, some players might be a bit jealous of Ozil being on massive wages. But I think when you're deciding to leave your highest paid player and your chief creator, the record player to fastest to 50 Premier League assists out of your starting lineup, attacking wise, you have to be getting it right. And one thing I've noticed this season was that he took Ozil off at Chelsea when we were drawing and we lost. We took Ozil off at Palace when we were winning, we drew. We took Ozil off at Brighton when we were drawing and we still drew. And we've left Ozil out for tactical reasons at Southampton and West Ham and we lost. So, and the other significant thing is that the one thing Ozil gives you is creativity in that centre of the pitch. I mean, clearly under Emery this season, we've moved to a different style in the way we create chances. We're creating more in the wide areas and the half spaces from cutbacks, but that's been at the detriment to where I think the most dangerous part of the pitch is to create chances, and that is just outside the 18-yard box, and that is Mesut Ozil territory. And I think that we're struggling. On Saturday against West Ham, there's a clear lack of creativity in the team. We had no shots at goal from the 67th minute onward in the game that we were losing. And I've got some stats here which I take no credit for. They came from a guy called Scott Willis, who's an American, who's on Twitter, _ Scott Crab. I can't remember his actual Twitter address, so I apologise for that. But the numbers this year are starting to sort of unravel, and we are down in a lot of areas. And I'll just read some outright. And in this game against West Ham, for example, as I said, we had 0 shots on target after the 67th minute in a game that we were losing. Our goal chances created against West Ham was the second lowest for a match this season. Only against Manchester City at home have we created less. Our actual touches in the box for the front three was down only 10 as compared to West Ham's 19. Our touches in the box as a team was only 20 compared to West Ham's 25. Our touches in the final third as a team was 72 compared to West Ham's 99. And in overall creativity this season, our shots per match is down 15.6 to 12.6. So we're not shooting at goal as much, and our creativity is down. Our chances created down from 11.7 to 9.2 this season. And you ask yourself, why is that? Well, the missing link to me seems to be that he's been unable to sort of work out what he's going to do with Mesut Ozil. And I think that when he had that interview, which impressed everyone at Arsenal, he must have said to the board what plans he had for Mesut Ozil. And here we are 8 months down the line where he doesn't seem to have a role for him. And I do think there's a similar sort of danger here. And I'm not trying to say I'm saying that Emery should be sacked for this situation with Ozil, but we saw what happened at Manchester United with Pogba and Mourinho. And what Emery is up against here is that the club, whether it was the right decision or not, and to be honest, I think it probably you could argue it was the wrong decision, but they've invested £350,000 a week in Mesut Ozil, and he's not going anywhere. He can stay on that contract. So I thought yesterday, the team, we moved it too slow into midfield. The midfielders didn't get the ball forward quick enough. The 3 centre-halves often had nowhere to play, and the attackers were starved of service. I think if you're going to play the system he played yesterday at 3 at the back, you have to have players in the right areas. Now, for me, when I was looking at that team, if you're going to play a back three, which is fine, I think you need certainly somebody in a half space between the midfield and the attack. So a 3-4-1-2 would be better for me. And I would have moved Ozil into that area and moved Lacazette and Aubameyang closer together. Lacazette did not combine at all with Maitland-Niles in those wide areas. And I think that you're playing... Sorry, not Lacazette, Aubameyang. Aubameyang and playing wide right does not combine in the way, say, that Bellerin and Mkhitaryan does. So we are wasting, I think, an elite forward, Aubameyang, in that area. And I want to see him more closer to Lacazette central. And I think the only way we're going to start creating in this sort of system with 3 at the back is moving the ball quickly through the thirds, through the lines, and getting Ozil on the ball in areas where he can influence the play. And that's where we're lacking. I think just one final point on this. If you look back at Wenger's teams were horribly poor defensively defensively. But the one thing Wenger always recognised, Harry, was that he knew what the strengths of his teams were. And his teams were about playing attacking football and scoring goals. And I think that Emery at the moment is almost like a duck between two stools. He's trying to be conservative in games, but that's at the expense of the creativity. And that the numbers are starting to bear out here. And I think the one thing we've always been at Arsenal is an attacking side. We've never been great defensively. And until we get great defensively, I think we're going to have to start scoring more goals. And to score more goals, I think a player of Mesut Ozil's talent has got to be in the side. And I think Emery's got to find a way to accommodate him in his team with the players around him to make this system work.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about Mesut Ozil, you know, rightly so, a lot of people talk about his inconsistencies and things like that. And I completely get that. If you asked me, would I pick him over Eden Hazard? Would I pick him over David Silva? Would I pick him over Kevin De Bruyne? The answer is probably no. But when you look at what else Arsenal have at their disposal, what Unai Emery has at his disposal, when you're talking about the Iwobis, the Mkhitaryan's, for me, we don't have anything better than Mesut Ozil, and so he's got to be involved. Now, Memz, in your eyes, what does Unai Emery mean when he says he's been left out for tactical reasons? Because as far as I can see, we're lacking creativity. What tactical reason is there to not even have Mesut Ozil on the subs bench?
If I'm being brutally honest, and I hope I'm wrong, I think Unai Emery and the Arsenal board have made a decision for Mesut Ozil can probably be invested elsewhere. And what they've now decided to do in their wisdom, I could be wrong, and I'm just bouncing a transfer request. That's what I honestly believe is happening right now, is that they're not playing him. He's trained all week. He was given a captain's armband and he was taken off at half-time, and he's not been seen since. Now, I honestly believe that there's something seriously not right between Mesut Ozil and Unai Emery. And like Graham said, there's a war going on. But it's a very dangerous game because Unai's got to be very careful how he manages this, because we've seen at PSG when he lost the faith with Neymar and what the end result was as well there. I can't understand for the life of me if Mesut Ozil's fit, he has to play, because like you said, Harry, he's better than what we've currently got at our disposal. He's better than the likes of Iwobi, he's better than the likes of Mkhitaryan. So if he's fit, he has to play. I know that people question his work rate. I know that people question his desire to win the ball back. But in the final third, and like what Graham said, if we want to create chances, and like what we said, like we saw a couple of weeks ago, he can pick out that pass. And especially when we're struggling to score goals, you need him in the pitch. You need him on the pitch. So there's something not quite right there. I hope that they're not trying to force him out. I hope that they're not trying to instigate him to hand in a transfer request. But for the life of me, that's the only thing that I can work out from this whole situation.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds logical, doesn't it? Because there's, like I said, there's no, if you're talking about you're going to go away from home against a strong side and you want to be a little bit more defensive and you leave Mesut Ozil out of the starting 11, I can accept that. I can understand that your tactics on that day may not be suited to him. But what I can't understand is why he's being omitted completely from match day squads. To me, that makes no sense. And I know, you look at the likes of Eddie Nketiah, young player, and I hope he does well. I don't think he will make it at Arsenal, unfortunately, for a number of reasons that I won't get into now. But when you look at some of the players that we do have on the bench, they're not going to impact the game any more than Mesut Ozil, are they? And, and Nketiah is just an example. I'm not picking on him. It's just the first name that comes to my head of a young player who, in my mind, won't have the influence that Mesut Ozil could have. And I don't want this to sound like a defense of Mesut Ozil, because don't get me wrong, during his time at Arsenal, there have been plenty of times when I've been frustrated with him, and I'm sure others feel the same way. But to me, like you said, it just feels like Unai Emery may be trying to make a point here, maybe trying to go head-to-head with the club's star man. And Mesut Ozil keeps putting things on Instagram, doesn't he, saying 4 weeks training and stuff. It's as though he's trying to make a point that in actual fact he is fit and he's ready to go and he wants to be part of this team and he's not being allowed. Graham, what do you make of that? Do you think that Mesut Ozil is trying to make a point?
I think Emery is trying to make a point that he sees him as a problem, not the solution. Now, whether that is the right way to be, if you're winning games like early in the season, when if Ozil was being left out and we're getting results, he would have more of an argument. But I believe that if you're a manager and you can't figure out the way to get your best players on the pitch and keep them there, that's not being a very good manager. That's just what I think. And I go back to what I said earlier. I think that when he got the job at Arsenal, he obviously sold to the board that he must have said what plans he had for Mesut Ozil. And the board, I would love to have been a fly on the wall then to listen to that conversation. I mean, it's clear this year we've moved to this new system of using wing backs for width, and they're becoming now the primary creative force. So in effect, the problem he's had, I suppose, over the last few weeks is that Bellerin hasn't been fit. But the thing is, and I think we have to give him a little bit of respect in that he's been suffering with injuries. He's been a big blow with the loss of Welbeck, who could have performed a role for us in one of those wide areas, taking pressure not only off the two forwards, but working in the wide areas. And also he's lost Mkhitaryan. Now, Mkhitaryan and Bellerin were combining really well in those wide areas at the start of the season. And to be honest with you, there was some good combinations yesterday between Iwobi and Kolasinac. I mean, Kolasinac has looked really good in this system. I think that's one of the reasons why Emery is persisting with the three at the back to utilise the strength of Kolasinac going forward. But the problem we've got now that basically that this has turned into our entire approach now, in a creative sense, in that we're just solely relying on Kolasinac or the wing backs, and we're not looking to create through the centre of the pitch, and the numbers certainly bear that out. And to me, I think that that way, I understand why you might want to, there's nothing wrong in getting crosses in from wide areas and using the width of the pitch. And of course, he hasn't yet got his stamp on the team. He might want a few dribblers in wide areas. I understand that. I also understand that he's going to sort of like get signings in, although you have to question where the money's coming from then, if already that we've been sold this week. So we have to give him time. I don't want him sacked, and people are going to say that I've turned on him after 6 months. People are saying Arsenal have turned on Emery very quickly. It's not that. I just feel you have to, when you're a top club, managers come in, and if they don't get it right, we're no longer if you look at Wenger, Harry, for example, he bought time on the fact he was so successful for a number of years. But you only have to look at Man United. Now, Man United after Ferguson, they've had 3 managers and 2 caretaker managers. And Solskjaer, even now, has started with 6 wins. And they're saying that at the end of the season, that they still might be looking to not give him the job. So that shows you, and Man United are the richest club in the world, I understand that. But at Arsenal, I think we have to say that although we've got to give Emery time, he has to be really careful here because he's only going to get a couple of years. And if after a couple of years we're not back in the Champions League, I would just wonder whether the club would be looking again.
Yeah,
could it be, Harry? Sorry. Can I ask for something out there? Could it be? I mean, something that Graham said when Graham said that he was, he went to the board and had a plan for Ozil and Ramsey. Could it be that the board have turned around and said to him, "You need to reduce the wage bill significantly," and the fact that we're allowing Ramsey to go, the fact we're allowing Welbeck to go, could it be that the board have tasked him to reduce the wage bill? I'm just throwing that out.
It could be. It could well be. And, we've seen in the past that our board are not particularly willing to spend money they don't have. They don't want to stretch the club's finances too much for whatever reason. Like Graham said earlier on, it is a self-sustaining model and they're very keen to stick to that principle. And that's fine. I think for me, the more I think about this, the more I think this was an issue that we knew about last season and the season before that. And when Arsene Wenger left, we kind of swept it under the carpet a little bit and we thought, new manager, new start, things are going to be okay. But in actual fact, this problem never really went away, did it? The lack of ambition shown from the club will continue to cause us problems in the next few years, no matter who the manager is. So for me, I don't really take too much issue with Unai Emery when it comes to what's been said in the last few days about us not making signings in January, nothing permanent. But what I do take issue with is the management of the team, the tactics, the formation, the setup, the selections. And, when you look at who the players that we brought in the summer, now I know that maybe Unai Emery didn't have 100% say on those signings. Sven Mislintat, Ralston Leahy played a massive part. And I'm sure that Unai Emery probably may have done things a little bit differently if it was only down to him. But, we got thumped at Liverpool the other week, didn't we? And obviously Bernd Leno was in goal. Lichtsteiner played in the defence, and so did Socrates. And I know that's down to injuries, but that's 3 of the back 5 essentially that were signed post Arsene Wenger. So you can't keep looking back at those players and saying, we defend poorly because we've been left with a load of rubbish from Arsene Wenger. For me, 3 of those 5 have not had any impact. And also, if you're going to tell me that we don't have much to spend, but you spend a significant portion of your transfer budget on Lucas Torreira and then don't think he's good enough to play ahead of Matteo Guendouzi, then I'm going to question it.
Yeah, I have to say, first of all, on Torreira, I do think he should have played yesterday because he had the rest of the previous week at the Blackpool game. But he has played a lot of minutes this season. That's one thing we have to say. But I would have played.
He did look a bit tired recently.
And I think that, to me, we could have done with Torreira and Ramsey in our midfield yesterday from the start. But going back to your argument on the defence, Harry, those defensive signings being Emery men or signed by Sven, we tried to fix our defensive deficiencies on a budget, didn't we? We have to say that. We've bought three players who basically cost 2/3 of the cost of Liverpool play for a goalkeeper. So don't be surprised when we get whacked 5-1 at Anfield. And the fact is that if you look at it this season, only Fulham have kept less clean sheets than Arsenal. And I think even in the unbeaten run, as much as Emery was tinkering, and there were some great moments in unbeaten run, the performance against Liverpool was outstanding at the Emirates, the performance against Tottenham even better. And we were finding ways to win in games, but we were giving up a lot of chances against the chances we were creating. And even then, so that rather masked what was happening. But I think that Emery certainly was tactically sort of changing things a lot. You could argue that maybe he wasn't getting it right at the start of games, but I think it's started to unravel now. And in the last 5 away games, I think we've lost 3 of them and drew 2 now. So 2 points out of 15 on the road, and no clean struggling for clean sheets, conceding goals. As I say, only Fulham are defensively worse than us. And I would have thought after 7 or 8 months of Emery being at the club, bearing in mind he works the players really well, that certainly I would expect us to be a bit more defensively solid, even with the players we got. Even on teams like Burnley and Huddersfield. Look at Huddersfield the other last month when they come to the Emirates, they were set up in a 5-4-1. Every player had a job, and we struggled to break them down. They had a system. They worked really hard in a shape, and yet teams play through us far too easily, don't they? So I would have expected Emery certainly to have, like what George Graham used to do. I know I'm a bit of an old fogey. I go back to a long time. I started supporting Arsenal in '71. But George Graham drilled that team defensively. That there's no people say that George Graham had a great defensive back line. The only reason for that was that George Graham worked on that back line day after day after day after day. If you talk to or you listen to interviews with those players like Lee Dixon and Tony Adams, they confirm that. I don't think Wenger did that at the club at all. I think it was all about focusing on attacking play. But Emery's come in, and I thought the one thing Emery would do would sort the defence out so players are in a shape and a system off the ball. Yet off the ball, we're no better than we were. And the funny thing is about it, Harry, is the 2 players that we criticise for being on-the-ball players and not very good off the ball are Ozil and Ramsey. Now, Ozil and Ramsey have barely played this season, and we've gone to a more harder working, defensively minded sort of setup, but we still get played through far too easily. We still get holding midfield players not coming across to fill gaps when wing backs go forward, and we still get holding midfield players out of position and teams getting at our back 4 too easily, or back 3, whatever you want to call it. So I would have thought Emery would have sorted that out, but he hasn't, and that's the worrying thing for me.
I mean, just before I bring Memz back in, I've just pulled up the Premier League clean sheet stats for this season, okay? And Arsenal are down in 19th position. Now, Newcastle United have kept more clean sheets than Arsenal this season, as have Cardiff, as have Bournemouth. Would you tell me that those teams have better individual players than us? So the coaching has to come into it at some point. And then, you signed Stefan Lichtsteiner, which, yes, it was a free transfer, but he's earning a substantial amount of money at Arsenal. And then, so you bring in a right back, but you obviously don't rate him because you'd rather play a 21-year-old centre midfielder at right back than Stefan Lichtsteiner. So there's just so many things I can't make sense of. I mean, Memz, your thoughts, man. Your thoughts before I get wound up.
Yeah, I mean, talking about the clean sheets, I mean, from my memory, a lot of the goals that we've conceded this season have been individual player mistakes. I mean, you look at the goal that we conceded against West Ham. It was a poor header out from Xhaka. I know I saw a stat. I see a stat on Twitter this week that from individual mistakes, Xhaka's cost us 5 goals this season. So there's a number of individual mistakes, a number of errors. So it doesn't matter how much you drill players on the training ground and how much you work on it. If players are going to make individual mistakes which are going to lead to goals, there's nothing that we can do about that. Hopefully,
there is. We can leave them at Memz. There is. We don't play them. Mm-hmm. We drop them.
Yeah, there is that. But then who'd you play? Who'd you play in their place, Graham? And there's no guarantee that the players that you're going to play in their place are not going to be making those mistakes as well. I think
the thing we said in the past is that players who are very comfortable in the team are making mistakes and just automatically getting on the team sheet the next week, they might carry on making those mistakes. If a player's dropped because he's making mistakes and told why he's dropped, when he comes back in the team, is there not an argument then that he's going to be a bit more focused and aware and not make those mistakes? That's just
there is that. Yeah, there is that. The player maybe should be playing with a bit more fear, knowing that if they did make a mistake, that they're going to be out of the team. So I take your point, but I think that. I mean, Graham, you mentioned the fact that George Graham drilled the players. We've got a player. We've got an individual at the club that was there under George Graham, and Steve Bold. If he can't pass on that knowledge, what George Graham installed into the players back then, and our greatest ever defence, then no one can. So I don't know what is going on at Arsenal. Why isn't Steve Bold getting those defenders and drilling them and getting them working as a unit? I don't know what's going on there. And Harry, you made a really good point about Lichtsteiner. Maybe because he wants Maitland-Niles to be a bit more attacking and he wanted some more legs on the right-hand side. But you've signed a right back. We're paying him, allegedly £90,000 a week, and then you're not playing him. And so what was the point? What was the thinking of going into it? The fact that he's gone from the 4-4-2 going to the 3 at the back. It seems like to me that he's not happy with the setup. He's not happy with the way things are going. We're conceding too many chances. We're not keeping clean sheets, and maybe he feels that with the 5 or the 3 at the back that we're going to be much more tighter. Subsequently, that's having an impact on us making chances. So he doesn't. Go on, mate.
Yeah, I was just going to make the point there with Maitland-Niles. That's a good point you make, but I'm just questioning from Maitland-Niles' point of view. And I know he's had a few months out injured, but he is a very physical, powerful, rangy midfielder who last year at Man United, when we lost up there 2-1,
he was brilliant. He was man of the match,
absolutely brilliant, wasn't he? He was brilliant. So, and with sort of Ramsey surplus to requirements, Ozil not being picked. And with no obvious ball-carrying midfielder in central midfield, we've just got like workhorses or holding midfielders in there. Why would you not want to give Maitland-Niles a shot in central midfield? I mean, I don't know what you think about it.
He should be playing Maitland-Niles. I mean, I like Guendouzi. I think he's a very talented player, and the way he retains the ball, he gives it simple. I like him, but I think you're 100% right. The fact that we've seen Maitland-Niles last season, and he gives us that extra dimension in those legs, and he's got something that the other centre midfield players maybe don't have. So why not give him a chance in that centre midfield role? The fact that he's not starting Ramsey, like you said, and Ozil, give him a chance in centre midfield. I mean, there's rumours that we're linked with a couple of midfield players on loan. There's the lad at Barcelona and the other lad at Sevilla. So he wants a centre midfield player. We've got that already in Maitland-Niles, so give him a chance. But I mean, there's other players as well. I mean, we're going to get Reece Nelson back next season. Hopefully he gets his opportunity. But where's he going to play in this current system? Because he's a wide player, and we don't really have those wide players currently in his system. So I think Unai's got a lot of thinking to do. I mean, the fact that he's not getting the best out of the 2 strikers, I mean, it's a real concern for me that he just doesn't seem at the moment to get the best out of the players of which he's got available, and that's a concern for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, it's come to that point where it's time to go to some of the listener questions. A huge thank you to every single one of you who sent one in. We've got loads this week, more than usual. So thank you, guys. I'm just going to pick 3 out, one for each of us to answer, just conscious of time. Graham, I'm going to put the first one to you.
To Memz.
This one. What's that?
Put the first one to Memz.
That's to you. No. To you, Graham. Go on, mate.
It's to you, Graham. It's to you.
Well, it depends what the question is. It might go to Memz.
Okay, so this one comes from Richard Wright. Thanks again for sending
Richard Wright.
Richard Wright, the old goalkeeper.
Not the ex-goalkeeper, Richard Wright. He asks, why does it seem like our fringe stroke youth players show more passion in the cup games than our first team do in the Premier League games?
Yeah, that one's to Memz. No, I mean, I have to say that cup game last week, that was the impression I got out of it, that we sort of like we had a experience at the back and we went with the youth up front. I think the obvious answer is, I suppose, that when the youth come into the side, they're full of running and energy and want to impress, don't they? But if that is obviously Richard's opinion. Looking at the team this year, I think that I would say that I don't think it's fair to say that they haven't shown those in the games that I've watched. I think but he's entitled to his opinion, and I think that if you're watching those players week in, week out, you might say in certain games they've lacked this or lacked that, and obviously you've only seen these young players in lesser games. So when they come in, maybe that is what it appears. Maybe I'm not answering this question very well, but the obvious answer is, I don't know if you want to help me out here, Harry. I'd say the younger players, obviously, when they get a chance, obviously want to impress, and maybe some of the more experienced players who are playing week in, week out, are set in their ways, maybe. But I have to say, Emery certainly, and they are under instructions from Emery he's on the touchline, isn't he? Sort of driving them on and telling them what to do in games. And he's gone for this more conservative approach. Maybe that's what's coming across the people who watch the team play. But I haven't answered that question really well, so I apologise to him. But I don't know. You guys want to help me out what your views are on that, Harry?
No, I mean, to be honest with you, I agree with you. I think in lesser games like cup games, it's very hard for an established first team player to raise his game for when you're playing someone sort of with let's not say like the high profile opponents. So the fact that the younger players are getting that opportunity to shine, I think of course they're going to try a lot much more harder. So I agree.
Does he mean, Harry? Does he mean the cup games or does he mean in the league?
What he's asking is, why does it seem like the fringe stroke youth players show more passion in the Europa League stroke cup games? That's because obviously those are the games that they're playing in.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. The old thing about the FA Cup's lost its appeal, and maybe the fact that the Europa League they'd rather be in the Champions League. Maybe they take that mindset into the matches. Maybe, and then when the youth players come in, they're thrilled to bits, aren't they, to be playing next to top quality players. They want to show what they can do. It could be a number of reasons, couldn't it? But I'd like to think that if they're giving that impression to Richard and other fans of the club, that's not the case. But I suppose sometimes it's hard for players to get themselves up for games that probably they'd rather be in the Champions League or in higher profile matches, but they're being paid a lot of money by the club, and they should always be given 100%. And it doesn't matter what game you're playing; you should always pay for the badge on the shirt. So if that's the case, that's disappointing, isn't it? I thought last week, to be honest, in the game against Blackpool, I really enjoyed that game because I liked the fact that he went with youth up front, which was a bit of a risk. But I thought that the younger players on the night showed lots of energy. I thought Willock, we've got a very good young player there. I thought Eddie Nketiah, although he missed a few chances, showed a lot of promise in his movement and the way he carried the team up the pitch. And maybe some of the senior players more sort of like strolled through the game more, maybe because it was comfortable, maybe because they're at a level where they didn't have to produce what they're capable of, so maybe that's part of it.
Harry,
Go on.
Sorry, Harry. You mentioned earlier on about Eddie Nketiah as well, and Graham's just touching it as well. I mean, I'm a little bit older than you, Harry. I'm not too sure if I'm as old as Graham, but anyway.
No one's as old as me.
I do remember a young Arsenal striker that burst onto the scene that was very similar to Eddie Nketiah in terms of physicality, etc. And I remember him having a first couple of opportunities, and he missed a number of chances, and that was Andy Cole. And he left Arsenal, and everyone said Andy Cole's not going to be good enough. And he had a bit of a decent career, didn't he, when he went to Man United and Newcastle? So I think it's very hard for young players to impress, when you're getting limited opportunities. And then when you do get those limited opportunities and you don't really have a good game, everyone seems to think they're not good enough. But I think it's young players need to have a run in the team. For them to actually show what they can do over maybe 5 to 10 games, rather than just judging them on sort of one game. So I do like the likes of Eddie Nketiah. I like the likes of Smith Rowe as well. I think Willock as well is a very talented player. I do think that there's this new generation coming through, but I think it's very hard for these younger generations players to get the chance to impress just based on 1 or 2 games.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Emil Smith-Rowe, I think that's a great point. If I could say that one of those youth players has the best chance of making it, I'd pick Emil Smith-Rowe at the moment, because I think he's just got that. He's got something about him. He's got that X factor. He's got that brilliant
ahead of Willock. Ahead of Willock?
Yeah, for me, yeah.
Yeah, for me also.
Yeah. Right, next question. This one's going to come to you, Memz.
Who's my barber? Go on.
Surprise, it's about Mesut Ozil. Most of them are, to be honest, this week.
Yeah, that's fine.
Should Ozil and Emery make a joint statement clarifying their positions? This one comes from Wobble Halls TV. Would you like to see them basically be honest about what's going on and, tell fans what's happening?
Honestly speaking, no, I wouldn't. I believe that whatever happens behind closed doors in the dressing room and whatever happens in the club should remain private. Of course, managers and players are going to have disagreements. I think the worst thing to do is to go public. We've seen it with Pogba and Mourinho. Obviously, there's some footage that's gone out in the training ground. And then, of course, when Mourinho left, Pogba puts up this type of tweet. So I think the worst thing to do is to come out and make a public statement and to be open and honest. If there is things going on, we can only speculate. Hopefully they're going to be mature about it and adult about it and trying to resolve whatever the issues are. I hope Mesut Ozil is that type of character where, he's been quite professional on social media. He hasn't put out anything sort of to say that there's a problem. And we saw, when he had an issue with the German team, he was quite professional until it came to an end. And then he put out a statement putting his side of the story out. So maybe if Mesut Ozil was to leave Arsenal, maybe he would then put out a statement to say this is what's actually happens. But I think whilst he's at the club, whilst he's receiving his wages, I think everything should be private and behind closed doors. I do hope that whatever is going on, it can be resolved. Now, maybe lads, that we're all just taking this too far. Maybe that there is an injury. Maybe that the fact that the manager wants to protect him and get him back when he's 100% fit. We don't know. We can only speculate. And, we can only sort of put our opinions out, but none of us knows. And it's like the finance side of the game. It's like, why did Arsene Wenger sign that player, or why didn't he sign Van Dijk when we had a chance, or why didn't we sign, certain players, and why did he do this? No one knows. We don't know what is going on at the club, and we can only speculate. And until there is some facts and official statements, then we can only judge then. But until that time, we can only guess.
I mean, my view on it is that obviously Emery wants to play in a certain style, a sort of pressing game, and clearly he doesn't fancy Ozil to do what he wants him to do in the team. So that's the thing. He could be leaving him out because he wants to G him up, sort of motivate him for when he brings him in. But I think the likelihood is that clearly he doesn't fancy him as a player, and that's the problem he's got, isn't it? The club have invested £350,000 a week in Mesut Ozil, and Ozil gets more Twitter followers than the whole Arsenal Football Club. So I think that I think that to me it makes sense for Emery to work with this now.
Of course.
And I think he's got no choice. I think until he's got some transfer windows to change the team around, until he gets the players in to improve the team in the areas he wants to improve the team, he's got to work with the best he's got. And Ozil is the most talented creative player in the club. So if you're telling me that you can't build a system around Mesut Ozil at the moment until you get the players in the team that you want to play, the style of football and the way you want to set the team up, I think you've got a problem as a manager. So as much as I like the way Emery's done some good things at the club, I think this is a situation that they don't even have to make a statement, do they? I mean, it's obvious to me what's going on, and tactical reasons. I mean, you can't. There's only so many games you can keep saying tactical reasons, isn't there? So exactly. For me, I think it's obvious. I think they don't even have to put a statement out there. It's clear both positions are what they are. But I think the onus really is on Unai Emery. He would have more of an argument if Arsenal were winning games, more of an argument if we were creating chances without Ozil. But the fact is, as I pointed out in all the stats I've delivered on your show tonight, Harry, we are creating less chances with Ozil out the team. So for me, I think he has to get him back in the team. And even if it means sort of like playing a slightly different system to what he wants to play, I think he has to do that. The one thing I've got from Emery at the moment is, you've said yourself, Harry, I think, he doesn't know his best 11. And one thing you said yourself, Memz, tonight is he hasn't got his own identity on the team yet. So those two things is what I think he's got to do. In answer to one point, just before I round off, question here that we talked about, did you honestly think that we'd be any better off? If you'd said when Emery came in, where would we be in January with the team he inherited, the players we bought? Are we not surprised we are where we are? That's the question.
It's a good question. I think we are in. Sorry, Harry. I think we are in the realistic position, to be honest with you. I think if Arsene Wenger had stayed and had another year, would be near enough exactly the same position than what we currently are at the moment, to be honest with you. So I don't think we're in a better position with Unai Emery. I don't think we're in a worse position with Emery. But one thing that we have seen is, for me, is a little bit of improvement, because we've seen the results away from home have improved. Definitely. The fact that we've gone 22 games unbeaten, for me, that's a significant improvement. The fact that we've seen an improvement in some players, the likes of Alex Iwobi and Hector Bellerin, for me, that's an improvement. The fact that we've got Lucas Torreira, a player that we've been craving for a long, long time, it's an improvement, So for me, there is positive signs, but he will be judged. He will be judged though after 2 years. If we're not back in the Champions League by the end of next season, I think the questions will be asked. And I agree. And I think at the moment he needs a couple of windows. He needs more time with the team. As you say, Memz, a great point you made there, actually. We have seen some improvement this year. But ultimately, the one thing I agree with Harry, I watch how the team play on the pitch, and the way that we're playing at the moment worries me. I have to say, the formations that he sets the team up, we're giving up too many chances. Players obviously not comfortable in some of the roles. He plays players out of position. There's a lack of combinations in key areas of the pitch. That's what worries me. Yes, there's been improvements, but even when we were improving, there were worrying signs in that run. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but I think we have to give him time. I agree with you. And the fact that the fact that he's played like Xhaka at left back as well in some games, like you said about playing players out of position, it is a concern. But I know that a lot of people are having this comparison with Liverpool and when Jurgen Klopp took over, and the fact that where they were is very similar to where we are now. But let's remember that, Liverpool are sort of top of the league at the moment and playing very, very well. But it took time for Jurgen Klopp to achieve was as they were when he took over into where they are now. But he had a lot of resources. He had a lot of money to support him as well. They signed Coutinho for 120 million.
Yeah, I mean he was
and he was able to invest. Go on, Graham.
Yeah, sorry, Memz. Yeah, he's been able to invest. He got investment in the team, but you got to remember they didn't start really investing in the team until he got them back in the Champions League. He got them back in the Champions League with the squad that more or less that he inherited, and I looked at that squad that he inherited. He's bought a virtual new team, something like 15 players in 3.5 years, but he only started really buying the big names once he got them back in the Champions League. So I think the thing is, all the time you stay in the Europa League, you're going to end up buying Europa League footballers. The important thing is he's got these. Can can he in the next year and a half with these 29-year-old players like your Lacazettes, your Aubameyangs and your Ozils, can he get us back in the Champions League? If he can get us back in the Champions League, then he'll have a bit more money and there'll be more of attraction. They can see where the project's going and he'll attract players. If the longer we stay out of the Champions League, we will not be able to get the players in that will grow this club forward and get us back to where we want to be. And I think that the comparison with Klopp is a good one. And Klopp did get investment from the owners, no doubt about that. And Klopp has spent a lot of money. But the one thing he did do with that squad he inherited, the first year he came 8th that first year, but the second year he got them back in the Champions League. And that's why I say it's so important that next year, because I honestly believe we're not going to get in the Champions League this year unless we win the Europa. So I think it's important that we really, I'm not saying we should just target the Europa, but it's important that Europa, which he understands how to win that. He's done that 3 times with Seville. That if we could win that'd be fantastic. But if he doesn't do that this year, next year, he has to deliver and get us back in the Champions League for the following season. And he has to do these group of 29-year-old players because they're coming to the end, aren't we? And all the time we stay outside the Champions League, we're going to be buying Europa League players.
Yeah. No, you're right.
That's right. Absolutely right. Now, final question, guys. I'm going to put this to both of you, just a one-word answer. In terms of percentage-wise, how high do you rate Arsenal's chances of making the top 4 this season? I'm going to start off. I'm going to say 10% at the moment. Memz?
Do you know, that's a really hard question because it's not just based on us, isn't it? It's based on how our teams perform as well. But I would say there's a 50% chance of us progressing. To be honest with you, I'm still quite confident that I will get things right. So I'll go 50%.
Graham?
Cool. That's quite generous. Well, if you watch Man United today, they look like the old Man United against Tottenham, didn't they? And they are. So I would say at the moment we're looking like the 6th best team in the league. I know fans won't want to hear that. I honestly believe that the top 4 this year will be. I think Man City and Liverpool will fight up for the title. I think Tottenham will come 3rd, and I think that it's. I honestly believe that it's Chelsea, Man United, and us for the next 3 places. But I've got this funny feeling that Man United are gonna, if they carry on, they could end up getting 4th spot and Chelsea 5th and us 6th. So I have to say, I think the percentage is less than 20% based on what I've seen, based purely on the fact that we can't defend. And that's our problem, isn't it? If you look at the way Man United defended today, and obviously De Gea was back to his best today, I'll get that as well. But the other teams are defensively more solid than us, and I think at the end of the day, that's our Achilles heel, defending.
Yep.
And let's be fair, lads. Even if we were in the Champions League at the moment with the current state of play, realistically, how far would we go in it? So I don't want to get into the Champions League. Yeah.
Well, no, it's all about getting back in the Champions League. When you get back in the Champions League, then we can attract some better players, and that's what it's about. And I don't think we should just look at because otherwise nobody would want to be. Why do teams want to be in the Champions League? Because
for the money generated.
For the money. So basically, you grow your club, don't you? Mm-hmm. And you get stronger as a club. Yeah,
it's all about the Benjamins. Yeah, that's what they say.
And the fact is, as we've said tonight. As I've said tonight, sort of like with the contract situation at Arsenal, the fact that we've allowed these contracts to sort of run down, and the players we're going to be losing. Without Champions League money, we're not going to be buying the quality of players we need to get this football club moving in the right direction again, are we? So getting back in the Champions League, I think that is absolutely essential. And if Emery doesn't deliver it in 2 years, Harry, I honestly believe that he won't be here in 2 years' time.
Right. Wow. Great stuff, guys. Thank you so much. Do you want to let our listeners know how they can find you on social media? Memz?
Well, I keep on changing my hat every couple of weeks, but currently,
what's that about?
Yeah. I don't know, mate. To be honest with you, I just want a quiet life now, every now and then. So it's very unusual. I do podcasts or any sort of public appearances anymore. But as you're an absolute gentleman, Harry, I don't mind coming on your podcast every now and then. But you can find me if you really wanted to Dorchiga, which is
what does that mean? Does that mean Turkish?
I'm actually Turkish Cypriot, and I actually know I used to play in the Greek league, and that was what I was actually called Dorchiga, which actually means Turk in Greek. So yeah, that's what it means.
Dorchiga means Turkish, the language.
Right. Okay.
as in a Turk. It's the language. Right. That's why I was wondering. I was like, does it mean the same thing? Is that why you?
Yeah, that's why I got it. I mean, like I said, I played in the Greek league many years ago, and when people,
what position?
I was a striker, mate. I was I was an old-fashioned English striker, and it was pretty similar to Alan Shearer, I would say. And I played up front. Actually, I played up front with Frank McAvenny for one season. Actually, the former West Ham player. Yeah, and we had a really good partnership. And when I played in the Greek league, a few of the Greek boys found out I was Turkish, and they said a couple of times "Spasiti Borkasu," like I was smash break his legs. You know, so it was quite tough, but I enjoyed it. Yeah, it was good times.
That league was very rough, and some good players played in that as well. Les Ferdinand played there as well for a while, I think. Yeah. So it was really good standard. Graham, do you want to let us know how we can follow you on Twitter and keep up with your latest appearances?
Yeah. Graham B195, Harry, is my Twitter handle. You'll also see me back on the Same Old Arsenal podcast with yourself. Looking forward to resuming that now that Craig's in a better place, so we can...
Good stuff.
Because that platform that he's built there is a good platform, and he's got a lot of followers now. Yeah, so that podcast is growing, and as you rightly said, but it's a shame that it sort of like if it was to end. So we want to get that back up and running again. So Same Old Arsenal podcast. And also, obviously, you can see me on Arsenal Fan TV, and I'm doing a tactical insight show tomorrow with Robbie, looking at the West Ham performance. So I've got to put some work together for that tonight. So. So you see me on AFTV, Same Old Arsenal. And I have to say, it's been a privilege to be back on Chronicles again with yourself. I do think it's a great podcast, Harry. I always give you a shout out on Same Old Arsenal, don't I? And
you do. And I must keep paying you for that. Cheers.
No, it's a great thing you do, and I think it's a very underrated podcast. And I always watch it, and I do tweet it out all the time. I've gained you some followers at work, and quite rightly so, because it's a really good.
You have indeed.
Yeah, cheers, man.
Yeah, Harry, next time you invite me on a podcast, mate, is there any chance you can get Mia Khalifa on here, mate? Any chance, because I know she's going around doing some Arsenal stuff at the moment and things like that. Any chance of getting a few porn stars on here or anything,
We can give it a go. That's for sure. I can slide into her DMs and see if it works.
Good man. Okay,
guys, thank you so much.
Cheers, Harry.
Pleasure.
Cheers, Harry.
That brings us to the end of another episode. My thanks to Graham and, of course, Memz for joining me on this episode. We'll be back on Thursday with our Chelsea preview, and we'll be back on the following Tuesday to review the Chelsea game with a former Arsenal player. So stay tuned for more information on that. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're listening on iTunes or YouTube. Hit the like button, and you can follow us on SoundCloud and all the other podcasting platforms. This show is also available on Spotify, and don't forget it's sponsored by loserpool.com. Until then, take care of yourselves. Goodbye.